of slides here that forms the introduction to a series of videos that I'm going to be making, having to do with academic at the university level, of how to beat the geeks. Because there's 3 reasons that you don't get good grades at the university. One is your study habits and your test-taking skills and knowledge of the material, that sort of thing. Next reason is the professors themselves. They don't present it properly to you, in terms of my view, as I'll explain a little bit later. And the third is the geeks. Now those sons of bitches, or sons of daughters, actually are studying a lot, and they keep the class average up, or the class curve up, making it harder for you to get decent grades and the rest. So, the idea here is to affect your study and test-taking skills at the same time without compromising your learning the social skills, which is almost as equally as important as some of the academic skills that you learn here when you go to the university. Professors teach you as if you're children, thus pedagogy. In fact, you're adults, and thus andragogy is a more appropriate thing. They give you these exams in which they give you, the average test score is 50%, typically in physics classes, and that has little assessment value in my view. The geeks, of course, are doing the problems and reading and the rest of it, doing all their effort, 24/7 and no social life. And when they do get exams problems, they've seen the problems, etc. And they just have to memorize the answers and they can bang it through. So how do we beat the geeks without becoming one? That's the idea. And when I get through all these videos that you listen through here, you're going to find that it's similar to going through puberty in terms of your worldview and the view of the subject matter. So, again, beat the geeks is the objective. Increase your course grade. One of the things that prompted me to do these things is a question I asked myself 25, 30 years ago. Why does it take so long, and why is it so hard to learn so little? Because when you look back at it, you say, well, what was that all about? The approach here is to make you wiser in terms of the subject matter, so you can make yourself smarter. And that would then you will be able to make yourself smarter, faster, and better. So with less effort, less time spent, and a better appreciation of the subject, and perhaps an appreciation of the actual beauty of the subject, which from the textbooks is pretty well hidden. And your interest, of course, is just cranking through and getting a grade and moving on. Now, the typical thing that happens is about a half or 3/4 of the way through the course. At that point, you've earned yourself a solid C. There's this eureka moment, or in modern terminology, an oh shit moment. Oh shit. I see how this all comes together, etc. Well, what if that eureka moment, or that oh shit moment, could be moved up into the first week of classes, which you could if you looked over these videos, because it's not going to take much effort to do, to look through them, and you realized what the structure was. Now, here's an example of what I mean by that. Imagine I had a truck and it had a whole bunch of bicycle parts on it, and I was just throwing down parts onto the ground. And I kept throwing it down. Eventually, I threw down the frame, and then you'd say, oh shit, I see how this goes together, and you'd start putting it together. But on top of that, you'd start to say, well, have you got a chain up there? Have you got a brake pad? You know, where's the seat? So you'd be looking forward and anticipating what the parts you would need to fill out the complete structure. If that were to happen, or possible to happen, early in the semester, imagine how wise you would be about the material. Then there's just learning a few skills and learning the actual content, but you'll know how the content went together, which is, I think, is the biggest problem that you face. And if that were the case, you could then learn the material quicker and better, and you'd get decent grades. So generally, what you have is content knowledge and quantitative knowledge. And the quantitative is primarily for the STEM courses. Content, of course, concerns the principles, laws, and all the various special cases, rules, and not the derivation so much, because that's kind of a procedural thing. But you're never usually asked to derive anything in any way. You're really primarily asked to solve problems, and that's procedural knowledge, in which you use the content knowledge. But the skills to solve the material or to study are not taught fully or properly, in my mind, but they form the basis of your grade, of how well you solve these silly problems. One of the reasons for not understanding what the structure is that they don't start with the frame first. They start with all the little pieces that I was giving you in the analogy of throwing down the bicycle parts. And that's the way you would teach children, a pedagogy or a bottom-up approach. Adults want to know where we're going, why we're going there, and the rest of it all the way down. So adults are looking for a top-down approach or an andragogic approach. And the same thing applies to how you would study material, both the content and the procedural knowledge for physics and the other courses. So a lot of this, what I'm going to be giving you here in these subsequent lectures, has to do with the general approach of how you would go about it, although it would be specific in the content of the material. Just to give you some idea, these are the kind of videos I've got planned. There's a good number of them. And then there's some here that are kind of special cases, which could be kind of interesting. They're kind of unique little pieces. But that's the gist of it. The idea, of course, of the videos is to beat the geeks, but not become one, and learn the material, or at least the structure of the material, such that you can learn how it all goes together, and then just learn the little pieces, which are easily enough done. And the textbooks cover the little pieces fine. What they don't cover is how the integration of them all in any kind of coherent sense. It's there, it's in the textbook, but that's not quite the same thing as actually looking at the material when you start from a top-down perspective. Okay? So that's the thing. So I hope you can turn on to the other ones and the other courses, and I'll just refer to this without having to go into great detail. But the idea of this video is to set you up and you understand the different way I'm approaching the material, and you're not kind of confused, well, why aren't we starting with the basics and all that sort of thing. And it's deliberate. Okay?